Chasing Unicorns Tech Talk. It's my name's Sean here. We have Erica Mosley with us, who is the director of partnership and business development over at Chasing Unicorns, of course. And we have Manuel Harnish and Kareem Issa. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves? We'll start with Erica first and move counterclockwise.
Yes, hi, my name is Erica Mosley. I'm a director of partnership and host of Chasing Unicorns. And today we're talking about how to land your dream job in tech. And my goal is to bridge the gap in the community by allowing non-traditional students to have the opportunities to speak with tech professionals. Thank you so much for being here. And we're just going to basically start off with the basics, right? Like we was talking about before with Kareem, tech. People just think that tech is just with the consumers. Some people think that it's shopping online. You also have from a non-traditional background, me educating people in the community, they think it's just IT, right? And I just really want to start off with Manuel, due to the fact that you are with IT. You started off with IT, I noticed, and then I noticed that you now with the head of customer success. So I just want to ask you a question. And ask you, how did you start with tech? Is your family was involved with it? Did you always want to be in IT? That's how I would like to start it off.
Yeah, thank you. And so yeah, my name is Manuel Harnish. I'm currently VP of Customer Success here at People Data Labs, and I've been in the tech industry in this space for the better part of 20 years now. So it's been quite a while. The way I got sort of started in technology, this goes all the way back to my teens. I grew up in Germany, and I went to school over there, and it was very much you had to pick somewhat early what track of career you wanted to go down on. They really sort of sort kids into three major areas. There's social sciences, there's business and economic studies, and then there's technical studies and the track, right? And so and it's also ranked in that order. So in other words, like social sort of like on the bottom, and business sort of in the middle, and then tech is sort of at the top with respect to the level of prestige and respect that you get as part of that, and also the difficulty, right? And I was fortunate in that I was able to kind of qualify for the highest end one, which being the technical track, and that was interesting to me at the same time. And very early on, I sort of liked tinkering. I think I got my first computer when I was like 11 or maybe 12. It was a Commodore 64. I had no idea what to do with it, but I enjoyed playing around with it. And I always sort of had a fascination with technology in general. So that's kind of how I got started.
Wonderful. Go ahead, Kareem. We're excited to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. My name is Kareem Issa, and I am the head of global talent or global recruiting at a financial technology company called Earnin. I got my background's a little bit different of getting into the tech world. I kind of have a non-traditional background. I never thought I was going to go to college, just because I always thought I would play pro baseball or be an entrepreneur, but I got a college scholarship. I never got drafted, and I went to school, but I left early because my mom was ill, and I have a big family. I'm the youngest of 9 children. I have a single mother parent, and I had to kind of help make a living, and I was 21 years old at the time, so I had to get a job to sort of help out the family. And back then, I didn't want to go be a bartender because I wanted something long term. So I ended up, and this will get to tech really quick, but I ended up figuring at the time what were the best management training companies. And back then, like 150 years ago, it was like IBM, it was Enterprise Rent-A-Car, it was Gallo Wines. And so I chose Gallo Wines, and I ended up getting a job at Gallo. And from there, the people at Gallo started a company called Silicon Valley Staffing Group, which is a recruiting agency, which today I am an actual investor of the company. And from there, I started helping out technology companies place people. So I would place a lot of salespeople, I'd place a lot of marketing people. And I did that for about 4 years. And I got recruited away to a little company called Google. And this was back in 2003. And so I was at Google for about a year until they moved me to the New York office. And I was the lead recruiter in their New York office, and I did that for another 2 years. Started my own company again because I kind of have that entrepreneur bug in me. Did it for 4 years and then went to a company called SurveyMonkey. After SurveyMonkey, I went to Facebook and Lending Club, and now I'm at EarnIn. But every job has sort of built up this network that's allowed me to get the next job. So everybody that I've come in contact with in the technology industry has really been a mentor to me. And the great thing about it is I've chosen to take this sort of recruiting track, which I think is amazing because you're at the cutting edge of what people are doing and getting jobs. And at the same time, it's a pretty good career long term.
Thank you so much for that
Absolutely.
information.
Go ahead, Erica. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Sean.
I'll let you take it from there.
Yes, thank you so much for that information. So now I know how to pick between you guys because you do customer success and you hell of talent, right? So, and I noticed that you said Kareem, you are usually doing a recruitment side, right? So, what are some skills that someone can use to be able to get into recruitment that leads to talent success? Because right now that is a hot role right now, but people don't know how to get in that. And I'm gonna get into you too, Manuel, because people want to get into customer success, but they don't know how to break down the two. A lot of the time, people are combining them together. Can you differentiate that?
Do you want me to start out or Manuel?
Go ahead, Manuel.
Got it.
Okay, so I think customer success is an interesting field, right? There's sort of like there's two parts to it that I would say. There's sort of the account management and relationship side of it, which is sort of one focus area, and another part of it. A lot of these technical products these days are they're very complex. They require sort of engineering resources to make sure that customers get value from it. And that's another discrete kind of role. So really the way I view it is there's what we call a customer success manager, which is CSM, is short for that. And they are the relationship owner. And that is probably the role that's a little bit easier to get into. People that do well in that area are either come from an SDR background, have done some type of sales, are very outgoing and extroverted, and really just kind of focus on building that relationship. But they can also take a step back and like look at an account holistically, look at the company that they work for, and then say, well, these are some of the steps that are necessary. These are the characters that I need to bring in order to help that customer, right? And so that's one discrete sort of skill set, and it's actually more likely than not, it's easy to get started in that area. The other side of it is the technical part, and a lot of times you'll hear that technical account manager is one potential title. Customer success engineer, CSE, is kind of what I like to call them. Some companies combine it. We actually have SEs, which are solution engineers that basically cover both pre and post sales. But in any case, that is more of a technical role. Folks that sort of are successful in that are people that are very technically curious, that spend a lot of time coding in the free time. Maybe they have like a Python project going on. Maybe they've been coding around on Raspberry Pis. Maybe they've been building their own little Android or iPhone apps, and just are very curious around the technology, and then can take that and leverage it in their day-to-day. And so that is the number one focus area of those roles, is to be able to speak at a technical level, but also be able to be customer facing. It is not a pure programmer or developer type of role. And so those are the two archetypes that I look at primarily.
So quick question for you, Emmanuel. I've heard a lot of customer success engineering roles, for instance, at companies like Reddit and stuff like that. Are those sort of a mix between people who know how to code and do business at the same time, or what do you know about?
Yeah,
That's
a great question. So it is. So basically, a lot of these products out there require some sort of coding interaction in order to get value from them, especially if they have APIs, right? APIs, application programming interface. It's like the hot new stuff. And it allows you to automate a lot of things. It allows you to integrate to other systems. And The customer success engineer role is really to enable the customer to be successful with those systems. Now, that may mean that they actually write some of the scripts for them, or they help debug for the customer, or maybe they're just a technical consultant that helps them sort of get through those challenges. But they can speak at the customer's level when it comes to that environment. In my last company, actually, the CSEs that we hired, they were all network engineers. They were practitioners for the product that we were selling, because in order to make those customers successful, you had to be able to speak at that same level, right? Otherwise, they would not take you serious. And so some of it depends on the company and on the product that you're representing, but by and large, the core of it is you need to be able to have the technical wherewithal, and then you need to be able to speak at different levels of the organization, engineer, and sometimes all the way up to director or VP, in order to show the value of what you're doing.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for that answer. And Erica, I have a quick question for you. So I guess you've had actually a very interesting background. I know you started almost in social work. How has your background really helped you prepare for your career now?
Yeah, so I had a very interesting story. Technology for me was a survival skill. So I grew up homeless with my father because my mother left me, and we just traveled all across America trying to survive. And the technology was for me so that way I can be able to figure out where the nearby shelters was, etc.
Mhm.
So I knew how to use the computer. And then when I went to school, I was familiarized with Excel, etc. Then I moved to San Francisco, and then later figured out that there was a big world for technology. So I learned the myth that only technology was coding. So I learned how to code, and then I figured out this is a big world. This is more than coding, right?
Mhm.
So then I started advancing from there. So now I'm here now.
Not sure if my Wi-Fi cut out or if
Nope.
I
still
think
there, Erica.
Who's
Yeah,
frozen?
her
I think she
connection.
cut out.
Yeah.
So
Can you hear me?
yeah, now I can see you. Continue.
Okay, yeah. So now I come from a non-traditional background, educating people that it's just more than coding, it's just more than IT. And then when I ask them, what do you want to do in coding and in tech, they're like, I don't know, you tell me. So it's just like trying to break down this big world to a
Mhm.
non-traditional people. So now I'm glad to have you guys all together to basically say that no, you can be customer success. I like how you broke that down, Manuel, basically the two parts and how you can be successful. So that way now when I speak to individuals, I can say that I notice that you like to do Python. I notice that you like to build apps. You can be, in customer success in the technical part. And it's like, oh, now I know how to break down things. So that's my story. And I'm just excited to learn more from you guys to break it down to a non-traditional way, as well as breaking it down to a consumer way. This is exciting.
That's actually a really interesting story. And so you mentioned, you were talking about a little bit earlier. You said you grew up in Los Angeles, like Crenshaw. Is that? And then you just basically learned coding on your own, or did you read a book? Or
Yeah, so what happened was I moved back here in San Francisco, and while I was homeless, I decided that I needed to be productive. And what is something that I can be productive? I love using computers. So I found this boot camp called Code Tenderloin. And Code Tenderloin is a boot camp that will allow you to learn front end development. Right. So I learned front end development, which is learning how to do the websites, etc. And then which led me to go to LinkedIn, GitHub, and start doing motivational speeches. Because like you said, Sean, my story is interesting. They're like, how did you get here? Like, how did you learn to code? Where did you come from? So that just led me to start doing motivational speeches. And then now I'm just working here with Chasing Unicorns, but I also volunteer with other organizations because what happens is these tech companies, they don't know how to fill their roles with diverse candidates. Why? It's because they don't know how to communicate with the individuals. Why? It's because they're not going to those locations. Now, if you do go to those locations, it goes back to what Manuel said was you have to know how to communicate with them and understand that language. So this is where I'm developing to whereas I'm getting the language from Manuel, you Kadeem, you as well, Sean, as well as Twan David here, so that way when I go down there, they will not only know the language, they will be able to come back to you, Kadeem, and say, I want to do this and talent management. I know this and this and that. You're like, wow, how did you know that? Erica taught me. So this is just part of this bridging the gap of the non-traditional world, so that way we can be able to understand together, if that makes sense.
Right, and actually, I'm sorry, David, I didn't get a chance to introduce you, so Erica, I'll let you introduce Mr. David here. Sorry.
Hi, David. Hi, David. Thank you so much for joining in. We are connecting and highlighting these top tech professionals here. And I want you to go ahead and tell us about your background. I noticed that you have a tech startup, and we were just talking about the definition of tech. So can you tell us about your background and how you started, so that way someone from a non-traditional background can understand how you got into tech?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to be here and hear all the good story here. And myself is originally from Taiwan, and you can say I'm more traditional in a sense in kind of education into the technology. But however, I will probably provide people another perspective from a more introverted person and more from say a minority perspective too. Even in the Silicon Valley today, people say Asian is a majority because we have about 33% of the population here. But when I first came here, literally 3 decades ago, that's not the story. And so I was really a minority back then. So to put it quick, I would say we all use our strengths to the best we can, and even use our I should say, or even use people's stereotype about us to our advantage sometimes. Right. And then we explain why I say that. And I'm a more introverted person, and English is obviously my second language. So it doesn't to my advantage to work as a recruiter, as another expert here. I only do a good job on that. And it's not to my advantage to support customers because they may need to ask me to repeat my sentence in order to understand me better. So that's not my strengths. So my strengths are including some stereotype about Asians. They say, okay, this guy is Asian from Taiwan, and his math is better. And that could be a myth or stereotype, but I take the advantage. And I say, okay, you see my math is better, and it's which not necessarily is true, but I didn't say no. And I go back home and I review my math.
I appreciate you so much telling your story and your background, and you definitely bring a diverse perspective here. And thank you so much for being here. And definitely take some notes because you will learn from some gems and from these guys. So what I'm going to ask you, Kareem, is to break down talent success. And I noticed that there's a lot of different terms: talent success, talent manager. And how do you actually get into those roles?
That's a good question. It's kind of my accident, to be honest with you.
Now you did. Now you did, Kareem.
Yeah. So to tell you my story, I didn't graduate from a traditional high school myself. I actually graduated from you can call a vocational high school in American terminology. And so I decided to get into electronics when I was 15 because nobody told me how to pick up which field to get into. And we have to pick up one in Taiwan when we went to the vocational school. And I said, oh, electronics, radio, probably interesting. And then I don't want to leave a big heavy machine, so radio is lighter. That's how I pick it up, to be honest. And I was fortunate because I learned how to build a radio, and I never use the skill anymore. And then after I graduated from the high school, and then again to, you can say, equivalent to a junior college in US standard. And then I started to learn about computer and then by then the electronic, they talk about how to build computers. And that's how I get into computer actually. And so
now we're gonna thank you so much.
Interesting and lucky, yeah.
Thank you so much. Now, Sean, I'm going to pass along to you. Ask Kareem the question about talent success.
Absolutely. So, Kareem, actually, I had a few questions for you since I actually worked. It was just a little bit at Tesla as a sourcing specialist. So I did a little bit of that, but it wasn't exactly technical recruiting. What do you know about talent specialist, and what's the difference between like a technical recruiter and like a sourcing specialist? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, I mean, it's different in a lot of different areas. I'll try to differentiate it a little bit. So you were at Tesla. How long ago were you at Tesla?
This was back in 2018. It was just a contract via Volt, and they were sourcing for the Model 3. So.
Okay, got it. Okay, yeah, I mean, I'll kind of break down the talent background. There's two sides. There's the agency side that actually support in-house recruiters. And I'm an investor in one called Silicon Valley Staffing Group, and I owned one called Pivotal Search Partners. Most of my career has been in-house, though, at running recruiting at companies like Google and Facebook and SurveyMonkey and now Earnin. So the way it's kind of broken down within our organization is we do have what's called a sourcing team. And the difference between a sourcer and a recruiter is that there's not a lot of difference. A sourcer's job is really doing like a lot of internet research, whether it be on LinkedIn, whether it be on GitHub or GitLab if it's technical, or whether it's on job boards if it's not technical, let's just say that. And their job is to try to talent match the people. Like if we have a customer service rep that we're looking for, it's to talent map what the hiring manager is looking for. It may be 3 years at a consumer web company with some sort of technical background, whatever it might be. Our sourcer's job is to go out there and try to interact with those people at a high level. Most of the people that we're going after have jobs today. So they're trying to get a messaging that's compelling to get them interested in the company in order for the recruiter to talk to them. So their job is really to go out en masse and try to find what we call passive candidates. The recruiter's job is, once we get that person, is to really help them get through the hiring process, because at most companies, they're very difficult, right? And if one of you are interviewing is a big deal. So as a recruiter, my job is to be able to tell the story of the company that I'm working at, as well as get you prepared for the interview process so you have a great experience. The fact of the matter is, 1 out of every 3.5 people who interview, what we call an on-site, it's a little different today because everything's on Zoom, but only 1 out of every 3 people actually get the job. So the recruiter's job is to, if you go to hire that person or make an offer, you're actually telling 2 people who have spent probably 6 hours, interviewing and a lot of research time, you're telling them they didn't get the job, right? And so you have to have a really good relationship with them to the start, have some empathy as well, right? And be able to tell them and say, look, like, we had a lot of great candidates. Unfortunately, you didn't get the job. Here are the couple points of the feedback that I have for you that might help you out in the next job. And if there's anything that I can do for you, please let me know. So as a recruiter, my job is to hire somebody. If they don't get the job, make them have such a great experience. They will tell their friends about the company. They'll become a customer of ours, and they'll keep in contact with us if we do have another job. We also have on the other side, which you guys are doing here, we also have a team which is called recruiting programs. And it's really fun. It's like, how do you create interest, like by building events to build up your hiring brand? And we do a lot of that in what we call diversity hiring or what. So if you have a second, I can tell you a quick story, because you mentioned when we were talking about diversity, and I think it's important. And I'll tell you about a huge a failure on my part. I was the 12th employee at a company called SurveyMonkey. It's now has over 1,000 employees. They're a very successful public company. And when I was there, I had the good fortune of having my senior vice president of engineering be a female, a very well-known female. Right below her was the director of engineering, and she was a very well-known female. Then it should be pretty easy for me to be able to hire female engineers, right? But because I was so focused on a day-to-day basis, like the first 20 people that I hired in engineering were all like white dudes. And it wasn't because I didn't care about diversity or anything like that. I was just heads down until one day, one of our product managers, her name is Ashley Carroll, she goes, Kareem, she's like, have you ever thought about, talking to women who code or talking to some of these other groups? And we started doing these events where we would have speakers and we would invite ladies who code and give them like this great experience at SurveyMonkey. And we ended up hiring a lot. But and I remember being on a panel one time that goes, man, you work at SurveyMonkey, you guys do a great job at hiring female engineers. And I was like, not because of me, it's because of somebody else, not me. But companies don't try to avoid hiring it. It's just sometimes it's not top of mind. Today it is top of mind, which is great to be a part of that conversation.
That's actually a really interesting story. And so, Kareem, I'm sorry, you're VP where now? I'm sorry.
I am the head of talent and executive recruiting. I kind of switched my role, so I'm in charge of executive recruiting and strategy and stuff like that. But at a fintech company called Earnin,
Cool.
it's a great company. It's a mission oriented company. We actually help people get access to their money before the 2-week pay cycle. And when you're in the Bay Area, it's kind of funny. If you guys don't mind, if I tell a quick story.
Sure.
I don't want to monopolize the time, but again, we allow people access to their money before the 2-week pay cycle, and that's actually very important because 80% of the people in the U.S. live paycheck to paycheck or something to that matter, and most of those people every month get late fees, some sort of late fees that their bank gives you, or I'm sorry, some sort of withdrawal fee. And so people begin to be in this like perpetual cycle of financial trouble. And so what Earnin does is it gives people access to their money, and it doesn't charge them a fee. It doesn't charge them a percentage or anything like that. We don't collect from anybody. If you don't pay us back, you just don't go on our platform again. And if you, and the only way we charge people is we say, hey, if you like our service, you can tip us. So we make our money just based off of a tipping and pay it forward model. Now, when I was interviewing, because I told you the other companies that I've worked at the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, but Earnin really resonated with me as a product because I grew up single mother of, I told you, a lot of kids in my family. So financial acrobats were always part of our life. Right. And the one thing that I knew from a recruiting standpoint, the challenge would be is how do you get people in the Bay Area who go to work every day and they've got their choice of 10 free coconut waters and free lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. How do you get them excited about the 80% of the people that they don't know about? So it's been fun, and it turns out a lot of people do have empathy for the people that we serve as a company. So that's my long-winded story of where I'm at, but I'm very proud of my company, as you can tell.
And I'm glad that you said you are interested in diversity because the type of consumers that you deal with is typically diversity, people coming from urban communities, etc. So if you show, basically like showing the receipts is what we say in our community, proving and showing receipts, that's actually bridging the gap. So what I want to, yeah, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, just to add to that, most tech companies, especially consumer tech companies, if you look at Google, 50% of their users are women, something that, and then out of that, what is the diversity breakdown? So yeah, it makes sense for them to have and to focus on diversity, because not only is it a good thing to do and it's inclusive, but it also helps you build better products, helps you build better service, it helps you reach the people who are using your product. So there's a business case for all of this as well.
Correct. So Manuel, so with that being said, do you typically hire people that come from Kareem's side, like talent success? How can somebody get into customer success? Are you guys two like an avenue for each other? Do you work together, or can someone come from a typical non-traditional background?
Yeah, great question. I think it very much sort of depends on the level of seniority for the role that we're recruiting for, right? If and I've certainly hired a number of people that didn't have college degrees. In fact, I'm probably one of the outliers that don't believe that college degrees are a good predictor of high quality output down the line. Now, they certainly serve a purpose for doctors and lawyers, right? Because I would not want my doctor figuring out the surgery as he goes. But for most other jobs, and customer success is certainly one of them, on the technical side of things, it's more about like what you're interested in, show me the project you've worked on, right? Show me like your technical aptitude, and a lot of that can be captured with some simple tests, right? Like, here's an API, write a script and figure out these 5 questions, right? And then show me what work you've done in order to accomplish that. A lot of people can figure that out, right? And it's about like the most interesting way of sort of approaching that solution. And as long as it's somewhat right, that's probably somebody that's more qualified to work here than compared to somebody that looks great on paper, but can't code their way out of a paper bag, to paraphrase, right? And so that's one example. And I think on the CSM side specifically, which is more the relationship side of things, especially at the entry level, you don't have to have a ton of qualification, right? Like this, I've seen people that have been, retail associates, right? Like, worked in a store, sold clothes or electronics or whatever it may have been, that have been able to make the leap into customer success. I've actually seen one really successful lady that I'd hired at my last company, who had sort of started out in the recruiting and background check industry, and she spent quite a bit of time doing that. And she's like, I realize I'm not really tech savvy, but she made up for it with following up on LinkedIn and just being super proactive, which set her apart from everybody else that I was talking to when we were recruiting for that role at the time. And to this day, she was one of the best hires I'd ever made. So it really depends on the candidate. And the one thing I would impart is stand out, right? Like don't just go through the motions. Don't just submit your application and like find something that stands out to the hiring manager and then follow up on that. That is probably the best way to get started.
Can I just jump in? I mean, I think that's great. I just want to add like a piece of advice as well. People in general, I think everybody, who's on the panel today, like wants to help people, and especially people who are eager and show a lot of interest. I would say find a mentor and have that mentor introduce you to people to do what I call infomercials, informational interviews. So if you're interested in customer success, find somebody who is connected to Manuel, and see if he'll spend 15 minutes on the phone with you so you can get proper direction. If you don't have a mentor, if you don't have somebody like a go-to person, because a lot of people don't, and it's an advantage to the people who do. I'm not gonna lie about that. But if you don't, LinkedIn is a tool that you can go and ask people and just be very open and just say, hey, look, I'm just looking for some advice and some mentorship. It will only take up 10 to 15 minutes of your time. And would you be interested in doing that? And I would bet money if you did that to 10 people, 2 to 3 people would be interested in doing that. Just have a plan on the questions that you're going to ask them, because people's time is valuable. Like Manuel, I mean, I don't, I could see, he's a VP at a company, he's probably extremely busy. I'm not going to just have him guide the conversation. I probably want to come with a list of questions and assumptions that I have, and then bring it to the table. He'll be able to help me out from there.
Thank you for saying that, because when the students listen to this, now they will be able to know how to approach you, Manuel. They know how to approach you, Kareem, as well as David, Sean, etc.
Absolutely, that was a great learning experience. I totally appreciate that. And actually, I think I was reading, Ray had sent us something about one of somebody had sent a beautiful cover letter. He was a former Twitter colleague or something, and we'd have to probably share that with the group. It was just a beautifully crafted cover letter. But I think we're running out of time. I'm not sure, Erica, if you want to take it from here, since I think it's still 2:30, right?
I think we had it to 1 hour. So I was going to ask you.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, Kareem. So I know that for Manuel already, you want, for example, you want someone to show you the projects. For example, a candidate come in, they show you that they have the GitHub, they have websites available to show you their projects. For example, if I was a candidate, I'll show you my television show, helping the community. You want to show projects, right? Now, for you, Kareem, for someone that's trying to get into the talent, side, what do you want, and what is a great candidate for your perspective? And that you say, yeah, I want to hire that person.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll be quite honest with you. I want somebody who has worked at an agency, because that's typically where you've been trained. Volt is an agency, Silicon Valley Staffing Group is an agency, such as that. But somebody who has that background and has worked at an agency for a little while. And then I want somebody who's done that and has been in-house for a year or two. So you've gotten the training from the agency side, which means you have the basics down, and you've been trained up really well. And then also at the same time, you have some in-house experience, because they're two different things, the two different languages that you speak. So my goal my advice would be, find the best recruiting agencies out there, staffing agencies, especially the ones that have good training ground. And for whoever's on the call, I'm willing to talk you through that. And then figure out a way to get an in with them, and they'll teach you very quickly the basics of recruiting. And once once you get those basics down, you'll have a lot of choices in your career, because you're interacting with clients all the time.
Totally. So I have sort of an off-topic question for you guys, and I think I want to keep it a little bit interesting for the group. Is what motivates you guys? Like, what do you guys do, in your pastimes and stuff to make it this far? Why don't we start with, we'll start with Erica, go counterclockwise.
Yeah, so right now, during this COVID-19, what really motivates me is getting people to the next level. So I'm literally always on the Clubhouse, literally always networking, connecting on LinkedIn to professionals to try to figure out how we can bridge the gap and fill in their apprenticeships, their boot camps, etc. Because if you guys know, on LinkedIn, they literally have all these jobs on there, and they literally on Clubhouse have all these jobs. And my goal is, again, just to fill the gap and let the community know that tech companies is really out there to help. People in the community, they think that, tech people is not helping, especially if you live in San Francisco. If you live in San Francisco, tech is kind of like the enemy to the community. They think the tech world just came out here and just took over, and they don't care. But so again, I'm the liaison and saying that, no, you just have to get in there, use your transferable skills, get a mentor, like you said, start some projects, get in front of people, network, and there's some jobs available. So that would motivate me. And on my off time, I like to do yoga to meditate my mind, as well, keep me strong and going for you guys.
Sounds good. David, what about you?
Oh, well, yeah, I like to be challenged with some difficult technical problems, and I also enjoy helping people out. And to my surprise, actually, a lot of people don't ask enough questions when they have opportunities. And I was surprised when people pin me on LinkedIn and found out I don't have opening right now, and then they just walk away. They didn't ask me a follow-up questions, and they lost a very great opportunities because I'm willing to help and say and mentoring people, giving some guideline, and so on. But most people actually just walk away after they find out I'm not hiring right now, and that's pretty bad.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I think a lot of people, including myself, underestimate the power of networking. So got to pick up on that. And Emmanuel, what about you? Sorry.
Yeah, look, I think the biggest piece that sort of motivates me on a day-to-day basis is I want to leave the world a better place than what I found it, and that's a very like high level one, right? But it kind of it trickles all the way down to like the people that are in my charge, the customers I work with, others in the company. At the end of the day, I want to be remembered as somebody that was a resource to them and that helped them get up the ladder, if you will, and that's another metaphor, right? But that's I've been fortunate in my career that I've received a lot of that, and so for me at this point, it's all about giving back and to be able to facilitate that. On the personal side, pre-COVID, we used to travel a lot. Hopefully, we'll get back to that point. I've been to 40 countries. I'd like to double that at some point, and maybe even more. Definitely enjoy that, and I love the outdoors and just just spending time in national parks and other outdoorsy events in areas to both teach my son about the world as well as just to create another well-rounded human being. A friend of ours had this saying is we don't want to raise a-holes, and that's exactly the goal, right? Is to raise children in the next generation that's gonna make it even better.
Right, and Kareem, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, similarly, like, first and foremost, living in the Bay Area is very expensive. So getting up every day and doing a good job is important for a lot of reasons. But, recruiting as a profession, you've got to be pretty competitive in nature, because especially in the Bay Area, because you are really fighting for the talent. So that's always kind of been a North Star for me, is like pick a company that you believe in or people at the company that you believe in. And then, work as hard as you can to be competitive and win talent. That's first and foremost. Being the head of recruiting at a lot of the companies that I have, it was been very important for me to build really strong organizations and be very supportive of people on my team, but also develop sort of like the next generation of leaders. And so that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of, is that I probably have, people who have worked for me, there's probably 15 or even 20 heads of talent out there at a lot of different companies. And I'm pretty proud of that. So, and obviously just trying to raise kids in the Bay Area, in the Silicon Valley, especially where I am in Menlo Park, how do you raise them not to be entitled? And I think that's a challenge. That's a challenge you go through every day. And
Let me speak to them.
I tell them how I grew up, and they look at me sideways. And so
they're not going to believe you. Let me speak to them.
Yeah, please do. So that's kind of my goal.
And also your team member Elaine is shouting you out too as well. She's like, chasing these unicorns together. She is customer success manager. I don't know if you guys know each other, but she's shouting you out, Kareem. You guys.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, at Earnin.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
So yes, this has been wonderful. Do you have any other questions, Sean?
Yes, absolutely. I actually do. So again, it's sort of again, more personal goal. What are like what's something personal that you guys are trying to achieve to do? For me, like I want to try to learn surfing. I've lived in California. I grew up and raised in California and never did surfing, and I want to do that before I die. But what are some things you guys, some of your goals? We'll start with David.
Me?
Yes, sir.
try to be a nicer and better person. I hope.
Okay.
Because through my growing up and my career, and I have received many help from different people, and even I have been bullied by some people too, but most of them are nice, and I try to learn and try to grow and try to help people, and so fortunately I still have a job to do here. I still can afford to live in Silicon Valley, and I think that's very fortunate because it requires not only smart and working hard, but also some luck and help from others. And I think it requires to pass it over to other people too. And
Right.
so
And actually, I had another. Sorry to interrupt you, David, but I
yeah.
had another question for you. As a sponsor for a certain company, I know oftentimes there may be some questionable things that are said, possibly about your company or who you represent. How do you address that in like a business situation? Going back to the business track, I know we went off track there a little bit. So
Okay, no problem. Yeah. It's tough. It's a challenge, and I need to know what I'm representing at different moment. It could be changed from one situation to the other. And for example, and in my personal practice, I don't talk much about my company at all, maybe zero on my Facebook, period. And because I leave that to my LinkedIn space, and I only talk about very few stuff actually about my family because privacy issue, and I share some say interesting news, nothing to do with career on my Facebook, and on LinkedIn, and then instead of just tens of connections, I have thousands of connections on my LinkedIn profile, and because I need to build my network, and I help stranger too when I have time, and so on. So a totally different kind of area. But myself is also committee member of international standard committee. So I have another role which I need to be careful too, because I cannot misrepresenting the committee when I'm not a representative of committee. And so I will say something like, okay, in my personal opinions, this should be done this way, and things like that. So that's how I made response to a technical question regarding to the particular standard, which I'm actually a co-author, but I cannot represent the committee itself. I will say that's my personal opinion.
very cool. And then what about you, Kareem?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so I was just basically asking if you had to represent a company, let's say your current or in the past, how would you go about addressing, negativity about the company and say a sales call with the head of a director or head of business or director at another company, addressing some negativity or stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. Look, like I'm in recruiting. Glassdoor will pepper.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a pissed off employee or a pissed off ex-employee, and you want to get people go on Glassdoor and they say a lot of things, some of it true, some of it not true, but it's right there. So we have to address it all the time. Like, look, I can only give people a balanced understanding of where our company is at the time. You just don't want to BS people because they're going to be working there. Everybody's going to understand once they get hired what the company is going to be like. So you have to be as balanced as possible. As a recruiter, you don't just sell a company and just give all the rosy pieces of it. You got to be balanced because there's no company that's perfect at all, ever. Even if you see them on the news all the time of being great, their stock prices up. Once you look under the hood, there are issues, but there's issues in every company, and that's kind of the fun of being with them because you can help kind of solve the problem. So specifically, it would be there would have to be a scenario, but I mean, I've addressed them on a daily basis, no matter what company I've worked at.
Got it. Got it. And Emmanuel, last but not least, of course. Go ahead, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I think a lot of times it's the context of why somebody's asking that or why it's being brought up, right? But to what Kareem said and even what David said, no company is perfect, right? Every organization is sort of comprised of human beings. We all have individual needs and wants, and as a result of that, there's going to be some conflict. And quite frankly, that's a good thing, right? Everybody's like, oh, we don't want conflict. Well, no, conflict is actually not a bad thing. The one thing I'll say is like there's healthy conflict and then there's unhealthy conflict. And when you see companies that have really bad ratings on Glassdoor, for instance, or there's other like negative press, there's usually a reason for that. Like most people, they will accept conflict and strive and things like that if things are moving in the right direction in general and there's a good culture that holds everything together. When you see these outbursts on Glassdoor and some other forums, that usually means that the train has long left the station with regards to culture and things are off the rails and there needs to be a major reset. And a lot of times it has to happen from the top down, right? Maybe it's arrogant founders or maybe just ignorance to folks, or maybe it's promoting people in the management positions that have no idea on how to lead and manage people and so forth. So it really depends on the situation, but that's kind of the feedback I would give.
Thank you. Erica, I think you're on mute. Sorry, can I hear me, Erica?
Yes, I want you guys
sorry.
to continue to come on the show because I'm actually the first Black non-traditional students that's actually interviewing top professionals and helping them bridge the gap. Not only that, I also help homeless individuals get into shelters, etc., and also help them to get into tech as well. So my goal is to continue to highlight professionals so that way people will know the knowledge to get into tech. And please refer other people that you guys know. And also, if you have roles that's opening as well, you can come back on and highlight it. And I know, Kadeem, I know that you're starting new projects. We would love for you to come on and share the world too as well. And thank you guys so much. And my goal is just to continue to lead my legend by helping non-traditional students get into the tech world like myself.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that's a great story. I appreciate you sharing it with us.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was great. I had a lot more questions, but it looks like we're out of time. So,
all right. Thank you very much.
Take care, guys. Stay warm out
Thank
here
you.
in California. Appreciate
Thank
the
you.
sun.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Sean.
Hey, that was cool. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So I didn't know if you were supposed to be my host with me or you the student or what.
I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's fine. I freestyle a lot of these, and I thought it was good. It went really smoothly, and they know you. I mean, I introduced you as working with, they know the director and stuff. So.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah, no, because
Did I do okay or? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I knew I knew them, but because how we were setting it up was that usually I would talk to the professionals and then the students would ask the questions at the end.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I think it went by okay. So